Okay, let's unpack this. We have just a massive, really sophisticated stack of source material in front of us today.
It's a lot to get through.
It is. And it's all focused on one thing, really. What it takes for a modern enterprise to build a data strategy that actually wins.
Right.
And this deep dive, it's not just about, picking the right database or migrating to the cloud.
No, not at all.
Although those things are, of course, part of it. But the core challenge here, and the sources are really clear on this, is about moving data strategy from being a purely technical problem, something solved in the IT backroom,
right,
to making it a core business driver,
right,
something that really dictates whether you succeed or fail in the next decade.
That's the strategic shift we have to navigate.
Right.
It's huge. And our mission today is to guide you through this really powerful integrated framework that the material lays out.
A three-part structure.
A three-part structure, exactly. And it's essential for getting past that reactive mode of data management and starting to build a real organizational advantage. We're operating in an environment with a scale and a velocity that are just unprecedented.
Yeah.
And the strategies that worked even, say, 3 or 4 years ago, they just won't cut it anymore.
No, you're right. We absolutely have to start with that scale. You mentioned scale, and that really defines the whole problem. It's so easy to throw around terms like terabytes or petabytes. But the sources, they anchor us right away in what they call the zettabyte era.
And setting the context with the zettabyte is just, it's foundational. Because it forces us to completely rethink architecture, strategy, everything.
So what is a zettabyte? I mean, for those of us who can't picture it.
A zettabyte, or ZB, is 10 to the power of 21 bytes. It's a 1 followed by 21 zeros.
Okay, so it's a number so big, it's basically meaningless on its own.
It is. It's hard to visualize. But it's the pace of accumulation that really matters. The research showed that back in 2016, the total annual internet traffic passed 1 zettabyte for the very first time.
That was the moment.
That was the threshold. That was the moment we entered a new era.
And just to put that in perspective, that was nearly a decade ago, which just shows you how fast this ramp up has been.
Precisely. The growth since then has been exponential. It's not a straight line. Current predictions from industry researchers suggest that the collective sum of the world's data, all of it, is going to mushroom to a staggering 175 zettabytes by 2025.
175?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, I can't wrap my head around a number like that.
It's just phenomenal momentum. And you think about momentum in, physics terms.
Right.
It's mass times velocity, right?
Right.
We have these massive amounts of data. That's the mass and the velocity, the speed at which it's being generated, processed, stored, analyzed. It's just increasing constantly.
So the strategic goal is what? Learning how to harness that force.
That's it. You have to learn how to harness that overwhelming force.
Because that velocity and that momentum, that's exactly what turns data from a simple storage problem for the tech department into this critical, almost existential opportunity for business leaders. If you ignore that force, you're not just standing still. You are functionally being left behind by a tsunami of information that your competitors are figuring out how to ride.
You're being swept away.
So, okay, if we accept this zettabyte phenomenon is real, and it obviously is, the question becomes, why should the CEO care? Or the CFO, or the head of a business unit, not just the chief data officer?
Right.
Because traditionally, data has been seen as a compliance burden, maybe, or at best, a cost center that IT has to manage. Why is it now a core business driver?
Because the entire competitive landscape is now defined by data intelligence.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is. And the penalties for falling behind are, they're severe.
It's not a small gap.
No. The sources lay out this incredibly compelling business case, and it's backed by some serious industry analysis, showing that data-driven organizations, they gain these massive differentiators that completely reshape their relationship with the market and ultimately their profitability.
Okay, give us those numbers, because they provide the why behind this entire deep dive.
The stats are, they're really striking. They provide the ultimate justification for making this investment. The research indicates that organizations that are effectively harnessing their data are 23 times more likely to acquire customers than their competitors.
23 times.
23.
That is a foundational advantage. I mean, we're talking about massive market share expansion. Your competitor is basically operating with a huge handicap when it comes to finding new business.
A huge handicap. And, acquisition is often the most expensive part of the whole business model, right?
Yeah.
So gaining that kind of efficiency is just enormous.
It's huge.
It is. But The advantage doesn't stop once you've got the customer.
Okay.
These same organizations, they're also 6 times as likely to retain those customers.
So you get them easier and you keep them longer.
Exactly. And retention, that builds loyalty. It stabilizes your recurring revenue. It dramatically cuts down on churn, which is, the bedrock of any sustainable, profitable business.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's the synthesis, the big one. When you combine that power of better acquisition and superior retention, the resulting profitability increase is just dramatic. Mm-hmm. These data-driven organizations are 19 times as likely to be profitable as a result of their data strategies.
Wow. Okay, so that combination, 23 times acquisition, 6 times retention, 19 times profitability. It makes it crystal clear. Data isn't just optimizing the business anymore.
No.
It is the competitive moat. It's the whole game.
It is the whole game. And it's all about making data operational. That's the key term.
Operational. What does that mean in practice?
It means it's embedded in the day-to-day decisions and processes. Data isn't just a report you look at that tells you what happened last quarter.
Right, it's not a history lesson.
It's not a history lesson. It's an action trigger. It dictates what happens now and what happens next.
Let's illustrate this. Let's move beyond the big stats and talk about some real-world business scenarios. Where does this operational data actually show up? How does it change things for people in the organization?
We can break it down into 3 key areas that pretty much touch every major function in a business.
Okay.
The first one is internal. It's about efficiency and human capital. Data intelligence can be used internally to dramatically improve employee engagement productivity.
How so?
Well, think about using predictive analytics to look at the skills inventory of your entire workforce. You can identify what critical skills you're going to need in the future and where your gaps are right now.
Okay, so you're seeing the future need.
You're seeing the future need. And then the system can proactively recommend relevant learning experiences, like a specific training module or maybe a mentorship opportunity to employees based on their specific data-validated needs in the workplace.
So you're learning from this, passive library that people might use if they have time, into an active, personalized intervention that you can actually measure. It closes a real performance gap. That's a huge efficiency gain.
A huge gain.
Okay, so that's the people side.
Right.
What about the physical side? Moving goods, managing assets.
That brings us to the supply chain. This is a classic area where data visibility gives you immediate, financial and operational returns. We also talk about the bullwhip effect.
Right.
Where, these small changes in demand from consumers at the retail store get magnified exponentially as they move up the supply chain.
All the way from the distributor to the manufacturer.
Right. And it leads to these huge inventory inefficiencies. You've got tons of capital that are just wasted sitting on shelves.
We've all seen this play out so dramatically. A minor perceived shortage by consumers turns into panic buying.
Yes.
Which then causes a 500% overorder at the manufacturing level, all because there was no real-time data visibility across that entire chain.
And a data strategy directly fights that instability by putting in solutions that give you real-time end-to-end visibility across the entire demand and supply network.
Powered by predictive insights.
Powered by sophisticated predictive insights, yes. Organizations can massively reduce that bullwhip effect. And that translates directly into increased inventory turns.
Meaning less cash tied up in stock.
Less capital tied up in slow-moving stock. And a faster, more responsive, and therefore a much more profitable operation. It's a shift from reacting to the past to predicting the immediate future.
Okay, so we've got people, we've got supply chain. What about the customer, the entire customer life cycle? How does data leverage that?
This is maybe the biggest strategic win. Leveraging data across the entire order management life cycle, end to end.
Because this is where things usually fall apart, right? The fragmentation.
It is. Organizations see the customer journey in these discrete, siloed stages. Marketing hands off to sales, sales hands off to logistics, and so on.
And nobody talks to each other.
A true data strategy integrates every single step. From that first moment a customer shows interest, through understanding their complex purchase behavior, all the way through order processing, fulfillment, logistics, finance, and even post-sale service.
So it's not enough for the marketing team to have great data on who showed interest.
Right.
That insight has to follow the product. It needs to inform logistics on the best shipping route. It needs to tell finance when to send a customized invoice. And it needs to tell the service team about potential issues to follow up on.
It's one Connected, seamless data thread.
A single source of truth about that customer journey.
Exactly. And when you have those operational differentiators in place, you're optimizing your people, you're mastering your supply chain, and you have complete visibility of the customer lifecycle, that's when you achieve that massive advantage the research promises.
But getting there, that requires a plan, a standardized integrated structure.
And that structure is what we need to dive into next.
Right.
Because it's the blueprint for avoiding all those common pitfalls we just talked about.
Like having great data in one department that nobody else can use.
Exactly. The source material gives us this framework, and it implicitly references a kind of funnel diagram. It shows how the input of three major themes get filtered and blended together to produce one unified enterprise data strategy.
And this framework is so critical because it shifts the whole conversation away from being led by technology.
Fundamentally, if you start with the tech, you risk buying really impressive, really expensive tools that solve minor problems, or worse, non-existent problems.
Right.
The goal here is to design a model that is driven by measurable business outcomes, not just by technical capability or, how much data you can store. You don't build a massive new data platform just because it's new and shiny.
You build it because it supports a specific strategic outcome. Like, we need to reduce our time to market by 30%.
Precisely.
Okay. Here's where it gets really interesting. Yeah. What are these three overlapping themes, these critical pillars that you have to blend together to create that unified strategy?
The sources define them very clearly as three interdependent spheres.
Wow.
They have to overlap and reinforce each other. It's not a checklist.
Right.
First, you have business value drivers.
Okay.
This is the strategic WHY and the operational what. It answers that foundational question. What are the most critical business problems or opportunities we are trying to solve and monetize with data?
The starting point.
The absolute starting point.
Yeah.
Second, there is big data management. This is the technical hell W. This pillar is all about the actual data platform, the infrastructure, the architecture, and the capabilities you need to handle zettabytes of data reliably.
The engine room.
The engine room, yes. And third, we have business process integration. This is the organizational where and who. It's the internal commitment to connecting the entire organization, making sure that data flows seamlessly across all those departmental and functional boundaries.
So you can't succeed if you only focus on one. I mean, if you have amazing technology, that's pillar 2, but it doesn't map to a real business goal, pillar 1. And it only lives in one department, siloed off from the rest of the company, pillar 3, then the whole thing just fails. The investment delivers no strategic value.
That's the perfect summation of the framework. These three themes are totally interdependent. They influence each other deeply. They have to be blended, not just stacked on top of each other, to flow into that funnel and produce that unified, actionable strategy at the bottom.
So we need to look at each pillar. We have to understand how they work together.
Let's start at the top, which the sources insist must be the true starting point, the business value drivers.
This is the strategic layer. This is where the business leaders have to define their ultimate purpose and direction. Because if the data strategy isn't aligned here, from the very beginning, it's not just a waste of money.
No.
It actually creates friction. It actively solves the wrong problems, which might be worse.
It is worse.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The enterprise data strategy has to be proactively influenced by the organization's key business value drivers. Leaders need to step back from the day-to-day and ask, how exactly can data be leveraged to fulfill our overall 3-year or 5-year business plan?
It's about linking data architecture directly and demonstrably to corporate, financial, and strategic goals.
You have to be able to draw a straight line from a piece of technology to a line item on the P&L. And the sources break down these required strategic questions into 3 key themes that really define success here.
Okay, let's get into those themes.
The first theme, it challenges this historical assumption of trade-offs. Leaders have to ask, how can we increase both customer lifetime value, or CLV?
So the total revenue a customer will ever generate.
Right. And operational efficiency at the same time, simultaneously. Historically, businesses always felt they had to choose.
You could have one or the other.
Right. You either invested a ton in tailored high-touch service to maximize CLV, which meant your operational costs were really high, or you ruthlessly cut costs for operational efficiency, but you risked alienating your customers and watching your CLV plummet.
So it was always this inherent conflict, the marketing and sales focus versus the finance and operations focus.
And that creates so much internal political friction.
Yeah.
Because it demands that the same data feeds into marketing's CLV budget and operations efficiency budget, and they have competing goals.
So how does the modern data-driven approach solve that tension?
It demands that you design a strategy that allows data to achieve a synthesis of these two goals. For example, predictive analytics might use machine learning to identify the exact moment a high-value customer is most likely to churn.
Okay, so it sees the risk.
It sees the risk, and then simultaneously it recommends the lowest cost, most automated intervention needed to retain them. Maybe it's a targeted email with a special offer, not an expensive phone call from a service rep.
So you get the high CLV outcome because you keep the customer, but you do it with high operational efficiency.
That is the simultaneous achievement. It completely shifts the paradigm by using this kind of surgical data application.
Okay, that's a powerful shift. What's the second theme?
The second theme is about embedding data into the very DNA of the operation. Operational excellence, it asks. How can we design our data strategies specifically to leverage data to drive operational excellence in every single functional area?
So this goes way beyond just the supply chain examples we talked about earlier.
Way beyond. This is using data visualization to monitor real-time production flow on a factory floor. It's using machine learning models to identify and reduce manual errors in financial reporting. It's ensuring continuous regulatory compliance through automated data checks. It's maximizing throughput in, complex manufacturing or service pipelines.
It's about making sure every part of the business operates at its peak performance, guided by this continuous automated data feedback, basically running the organization like a high-performance engine.
That's a great way to put it.
And the third theme.
The third theme is the most holistic, and you could argue it's the most difficult. It's called outcome-driven strategy.
Okay.
And the question here is, how can you design your overall business strategy to inherently drive your desired business outcomes using data? This is about pre-baking the data requirement into the business model itself.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, so if the defined strategic business outcome is become the industry leader in proactive safety and reliability, then the corresponding data strategy has to be defined first, before anything else. It has to continuously measure and optimize reliability metrics, predict maintenance windows, track equipment downtime, anticipate potential failure rates.
Before the business units even start designing their day-to-day processes.
Exactly. The business strategy itself is built on a foundation of data capability.
The key concept here, and the source reinforces this over and over, is so crucial. Data strategy starts with the business goal, not the data tool.
All right.
You define the desired measurable outcome, and then you go figure out the necessary coherent data architecture you need to support it.
Because if you start with the tool, you will inevitably end up with a high-cost pile of technology desperately looking for a meaningful problem to solve.
And that leads us directly into the reactive trap, right? Which is the focus of our second pillar.
Yes, the reactive trap in big data management.
The sources say that so many organizations, even after spending billions on digital transformation over the last few years, fell right into this trap. They bought all the impressive technology, but they didn't have a unified strategy to govern it. So what did that look like on the ground?
It looks like disconnected and deeply siloed execution. Just chaos, really.
So like 10 different teams, each with their own specialized tools.
Exactly. Each team bought a tool to solve their immediate local problem, but none of those tools talk to each other effectively. So even if the organization has all this cutting-edge technology supporting key data management areas, the lack of coherence makes the entire effort redundant, inefficient, and fundamentally non-scalable in this zettabyte era.
Okay, the sources detailed this list of 10 functional areas that often operate in isolation. I think we need to go through these because it paints such a vivid picture of the resulting chaos. It shows why coherence is so hard to achieve.
It's a laundry list of technical debt just waiting to happen. First, you've got data ingestion, replication, and ETL extraction transfer load.
This is the basic plumbing, right? Getting the data from A to B.
It's the plumbing, getting raw data from its source system and moving it to a central repository. If every team builds its own custom, bespoke pipeline and ETL scripts, you have massive duplication of effort, you have inconsistent data mapping, and you get inconsistent results.
And inconsistent data means unreliable insights, which is way worse than having no data because you're making high-stakes decisions based on fragmented truths.
It's worse, exactly. Second on the list is data federation.
What's that?
It's the ability to query data from multiple different sources as if they were one, but without physically moving all the data into a single place.
Sounds useful.
It can be, but when it's done ad hoc, teams get these temporary views of data. It prevents you from ever building a permanent, unified view of the enterprise that leadership needs. It basically kicks the can down the road on critical architectural decisions instead of solving them.
Okay, the third one is data cataloging. That sounds pretty simple, just keeping track of what data you have. Why does siloed cataloging cause such chaos?
Because cataloging is fundamentally about governance and finding value. A unified catalog is like a library card catalog for all your data assets. It documents who owns them, what's in them, how trustworthy they are. Without a unified enterprise-wide catalog, people spend up to half their time just looking for reliable data instead of actually analyzing it.
Yeah, half their time.
And even more critically, without a unified catalog, organizations fail critical governance audits, like the ones related to consumer data privacy regulations, because they can't quickly or reliably locate all of their sensitive data assets across all those different siloed systems.
So that's not a technical inconvenience. That's a fundamental governance and regulatory risk.
It's a critical risk. Okay, fourth, we have master data governance and data quality.
This is a big one.
It's vital. It's about ensuring the consistency of your key business entities like customer names, product IDs, geographical codes across the entire enterprise. If this is managed locally in different silos, your sales data calls a major customer one thing, and your logistics data calls them something subtly different.
And that little discrepancy.
That small discrepancy leads to systematic errors, waste, and a really fragmented customer experience when your systems can't match up the records reliably.
Right. What about the processing side of things?
Okay, so fifth is data pipelining and orchestration. This is the scheduling and management of all these complex data movement processes. If it's siloed and one system fails, the 10 other interdependent systems have no idea how to recover. It leads to systemic instability and missed deadlines.
And number 6?
Number 6 is distributed big data processing. This is the actual computational heavy lifting for these massive data sets. If every team is reinventing the wheel here, building their own cluster environments, you're just wasting incredibly expensive compute resources. You get no economies of scale.
Number 7 is big data databases and storage. And since we're in the zettabyte era, I imagine these decisions are huge.
You're monumental. Fragmented storage across different departments, different technologies. It leads to extremely high costs, duplicated data copies, and really inconsistent access controls, which is a major security vulnerability.
It's a CIO's nightmare.
It is. 8th, we have cloud platform as a service components. The cloud gives you flexibility, but if you have different departments just adopting various incompatible cloud services piecemeal, you create massive management overhead and security complexity. You basically undermine the cost savings the cloud promised you in the first place.
And then we get to the actual output, the reason you're doing all this.
Right. 9th is machine learning and data science. Siloed execution here means different teams are building redundant, competing models on unreliable, inconsistent data. The marketing team builds a churn prediction model using customer data from last month.
While the finance team builds a completely different one using data from a different system.
And you get conflicting forecasts. Leadership doesn't know who to believe. And finally, 10th is analytics, the dashboards, the reports. If these were all built in isolation, business leaders end up with a pile of conflicting reports that don't tell a common, coherent story, and you get paralysis by analysis.
That list is it's overwhelming. For any organization struggling with this, where do you even start? I mean, isn't trying to fix all 10 silos at once just a recipe for paralysis?
It is, and that's the critical challenge. The sources are clear on this. The goal isn't to fix all 10 at once. It's to move toward building a data intelligence strategy that is aimed at shaping a single, coherent, big data management platform.
So you prioritize?
You prioritize the silos that align with your Pillar 1 business value drivers. Coherence means integration, not just accumulating more tools. And this platform, it has to be scalable, flexible, and powerful enough to handle that 175 zettabyte future reliably.
Okay, so what does that coherence look like in practice? Give us some specific examples of this unified execution that contrasts with the chaos of the silos.
Let's look at 3 key transformation examples. The first is business application transformation.
Okay.
With a coherent platform, you can streamline your innovation initiatives around business applications because they all plug into the same reliable, common platform. So instead of building a new supply chain app that needs its own custom data injection and storage,
you just plug it into the existing platform.
you plug it in, leveraging pre-built pipelines and unified governance. This massively accelerates deployment, it ensures data consistency, and it saves enormous infrastructure costs. It's the reuse of reliable components.
It's achieving true IT economies of scale. What about the explosion of data from, physical devices, all the IoT streams?
That's the second area. IoT ingestion, orchestration, and automation. The coherent platform can take that constant, high-volume stream of events coming from connected devices and transform it into enterprise-ready data immediately, not hours or days later.
And it doesn't just store it.
No. Critically, it immediately derives actionable insights from that data, and then it leverages intelligent robotic process automation, or RPA, to automate processes based on those insights.
Can you elaborate on that RPA part? It sounds like the platform is actually taking action by itself.
It is, exactly. The RPA uses the unified data platform Pillar 2 to action the insights derived from your Pillar 1 goals. For example, a sensor on a machine detects an anomaly. That's the data. The coherent platform analyzes that anomaly instantly against historical performance data. That's the insight.
And then the action.
Then the RPA system automatically generates a service ticket, it orders a replacement part from the inventory system, and it sends a notification to the maintenance engineer's phone. The data stream becomes an automated decision-making workflow, all without any human latency.
That is operational excellence in action, real-time relevance.
And the final example is about analysis itself. Connected data warehousing and analytics. The power of analytics is maximized when it is consumed at the moment of live connections.
Not from last week's data poll.
Exactly. The coherent platform ensures that the C-suite's dashboard isn't based on 3-day-old batch data. It's based on the freshest information available across all systems, making their decision-making proactive, not reactive.
The analogy for you, the listener, is just so viable here. We're moving from a collection of specialized, highly efficient tools that are all located in their own isolated sheds to an integrated factory floor, where all the specialized machinery connects seamlessly via a single, reliable conveyor belt. It's about ensuring smooth, unified production.
That is precisely the architectural shift required to master Pillar 2. But even if you master your technology, your platform, it all still fails if you don't master the organization itself.
Which brings us to the third and often the most politically charged pillar, business process integration. This is all about the danger of departmental autonomy in data strategy. In today's world, individual business units, supply chain, marketing, sales, they all have access to incredibly powerful, cheap technology.
They do?
And so they often decide on their own data strategy and their own tech, stand alone because they feel like they can move faster that way.
And that feeling of local agility,
Yeah.
it's intensely seductive for a unit leader.
Of course it is.
On the surface, it lets them quickly pick a specialized tool, stand it up, and meet an immediate local need. But the source material delivers a really stern warning here. While it might be locally agile, that strategy is fundamentally not scalable for the enterprise.
And that's the ultimate paradox, isn't it? The decision that's made to avoid some temporary friction in one business unit leads to massive systemic operational friction everywhere else down the line.
That's it.
So why does that local agility lead to global failure?
Well, it creates unnecessary organizational friction, and it sacrifices operating margin by losing these crucial efficiencies of scale. Every single time a new redundant data tool or platform is purchased just for one department, you're incurring new licensing costs, unique maintenance overhead, massive data duplication costs.
All of which could have been avoided by using one common enterprise-wide platform.
Right. So you have that immediate financial cost. But the greater loss is strategic.
Which is what?
The organization fails to harness the power of one common data platform to power its entire business process. If the marketing data isn't easily accessible and interpretable by the finance team, the organization loses the ability to analyze the true integrated return on its marketing spend. The data exists, but the strategic insight is just lost in the organizational gap between the silos.
So integration isn't just an expense reduction exercise. It's about strategic power. It's about maximizing the value that you're trying to generate with Pillar 1 and Pillar 2.
Exactly. The source material is very, very clear on this. Integration is not just an IT topic.
Right.
It is no longer just about making two APIs, application programming interfaces, join together so that System A can talk to System B. That technical connection is necessary, of course, but it is entirely insufficient to deliver strategic value.
So what then is the proper business-driven definition of integration, the one that achieves this strategic power?
Business process integration is defined as a key business-driven strategy that creates synergy.
Synergy.
And that synergy results in a massive exponential gain for the organization. This is the classic 1 + 1 = 3 effect. The combined insight is far greater than the sum of its independent parts. And this demands a real organizational commitment to breaking down those internal barriers, ensuring that when data flows across departments, the insight it provides actually compounds.
Can you give us a detailed example of what that exponential gain looks like in a complex business process, like, say, order fulfillment?
Yeah, let's take the full order-to-cash life cycle. In a siloed environment, marketing generates a lead, sales closes the deal, and then they just throw the order over the wall to fulfillment.
Right.
Fulfillment then optimizes for shipping speed, and then finance optimizes for payment processing. Each step is optimized locally, in its own world, but the handoffs are slow, they're error-prone, they're data-blind. The system only knows the order number. It doesn't know the strategic story behind that customer or the predictive status of the inventory.
And the customer experience feels fragmented and slow because they have to repeat their story to 5 different departments.
Exactly. Now, in a truly integrated environment, one that's supported by a coherent platform, the system knows instantly that a specific customer purchase behavior data from the sales system signals a high probability they're going to need complex setup support or a service follow-up in 3 months. That's data for the service team.
Okay, so it's predicting future needs.
It's predicting needs. And because the order flowed seamlessly from sales through logistics, the finance system was automatically able to generate a personalized invoice structure based on that customer's pre-validated long-term value profile.
That's the synergy.
That's the synergy in action. This seamless, data-driven flow minimizes friction, it maximizes CLV, and it ensures operational efficiency. The data from one unit feeds and optimizes the action of 3 other units simultaneously.
So pillar 3 is really the organizational commitment. It's the political will to break down those internal barriers so that the powerful platform you built in pillar 2 can actually meet the strategic goals you defined in pillar 1.
That's it. Without integration, the platform is just a very expensive, very underutilized server rack.
Okay, so we've established the 3 blended themes: business value drivers, big data management, and business process integration. If an organization manages to align all 3, what's the next step? How do you move from this abstract strategy to measurable action? How do you operationalize the impact?
The next step becomes imperative for justifying the investment across the entire enterprise. You have to create a common data value model.
A value model.
Yeah. Strategy is useful, but it's only useful if you can measure its impact in terms that business leaders and investors actually understand. The sources reference some prominent business research on this, and it highlights that these value models are essential because they facilitate that critical communication between business leaders and data experts.
Right, because the business leaders, they speak the language of profit and market share and ROI, and the data experts often speak the language of latency and throughput and algorithms. You need a common language, a bridge to unite the entire effort.
Precisely. The success of the organization in the zettabyte era depends so heavily on the entire organization coming together to create this common enterprise data strategy.
Yeah.
And the value model is the mechanism for that unity.
So how do you build one?
The sources provide a highly structured approach for this translation. It's called the Value Discovery Canvas. Sometimes it's referred to as the 4-Force formula.
The Value Discovery Canvas. Okay, let's break that down. It sounds like a mandatory mapping tool, something designed to identify the problem and measure the solution at the same time.
It is exactly that. It forces a structured, standardized conversation about value creation across the whole enterprise. It has 2 main sides. The first side is all about discovery and assessment, framing the data problem correctly and making sure everyone's aligned on the business goal.
Okay, what's on that side?
The elements here include defining the domain the project touches. Is it finance, logistics, HR, manufacturing? Determining clear ownership. Who is accountable for the data, the process, and the final business outcome? And establishing the context, the specific business challenge or opportunity that requires a data solution. And you have to link that directly back to your Pillar 1 value drivers.
So because data strategy has to start with the business goal, the canvas forces you to define those goals with crystal clarity before a single line of code gets written.
Right. And then it requires articulating the key stakeholders involved, defining the specific questions the data needs to answer, and the corresponding actions that will be taken based on those answers. You then record the answers you get from the data analysis, and finally, you define the road to resolution, the iterative steps needed to implement the changes and scale the solution.
It's a very structured process.
This entire assessment side ensures that the business and data teams are completely aligned on what and how to solve it before any major resources are committed.
And that structure is essential for preventing the kind of scope creep that just kills these large data initiatives. What about the other side, the metric side? This is where the business language comes in to justify the spend.
This side is absolutely crucial for assessing the impact and justifying ongoing investment in that coherent platform. The framework demands clear metrics, and it leverages that 4-4 structure: value, time to market, TTM, return on investment, ROI, and cost of inaction, COI.
Okay, we all understand a value and ROI, but let's elaborate on time to market and cost of inaction, because they feel like the most powerful and yet often the most overlooked strategic metrics for the C-suite.
They really are. So, time to market, TTM, it measures how quickly your data solution or insight can be developed, deployed, and actually start generating tangible results. In the zettabyte era, where velocity is everything, speed is a strategic weapon.
Right.
A solution that takes 18 months to deploy using siloed manual processes. It's often obsolete before it's even finished. Or the competitive opportunity is long gone. The coherent platform needs to demonstrate a fast TTM for new data products, and that speed is only possible through component reuse and enterprise integration. TTM quantifies the agility you gain by mastering Pillar 2.
And cost of inaction, COI, that flips the traditional script. Instead of just justifying the expenditure, the ROI, it forces the team to quantify the loss of not doing the project.
It's a negative justification, and it's arguably the most powerful metric for creating urgency. COI quantifies the predictable damage of standing still in the face of this zettabyte momentum.
And it's not just lost revenue?
No, it's about quantifying specific, measurable pain points that inaction causes. For example, the COI might quantify the anticipated 15% increase in regulatory fines over the next 2 years if we don't unify our data governance, a failure of Pillar 2 coherence.
Or quantifying the friction and lost productivity across the business.
Precisely. The COI might quantify an anticipated 8% reduction in employee productivity because teams are still relying on slow batch reports instead of real-time insights, forcing them to manually reconcile conflicting data sets. Or it might quantify the missed opportunity cost, like the estimated $5 million in additional annual revenue that 23x customer acquisition metric promises, which you're going to lose because of your existing fragmented marketing systems.
By putting those kinds of tangible, massive numbers on the cost of doing nothing,
you create an undeniable sense of urgency. And it powerfully justifies the required ROI for investment in the integrated data platform and a common strategy.
This whole framework, really, from the Pillar 1 goals all the way to the COI metric, it all boils down to one simple, powerful concept that the sources illustrate with this really clean flow diagram: data as an asset.
This is the fundamental concept under all 3 pillars and the value canvas.
Yeah.
Data has to be treated like capital equipment or intellectual property. It's a tangible asset that requires dedicated management, governance, and strategic application to generate measurable results. If you don't manage it strategically, it depreciates fast.
And the flow is so simple but perfect. Data must lead to value add,
meaning a measurable improvement in a process, an insight, or a decision.
Which in turn leads directly to specific, quantifiable business outcomes, the ones you defined back in Pillar 1.
And if your data strategy doesn't follow that clean flow, if you have data that doesn't create measurable value add, or you have value add that doesn't translate into a measurable business outcome, then you are simply hoarding information at immense cost. You are not building a strategy.
This unified framework gives you the necessary steps to justify the investment, to unify the organization, and to measure the effectiveness of your data initiatives in a world that is just drowning in zettabytes.
So this deep dive has really shown us that the future of enterprise success, it hinges entirely on unifying this massive momentum of the zettabyte era under a single coherent vision.
You have to move past the disconnected reactive data management and the architectural chaos.
The required shift is defined by blending those 3 critical themes we talked about into a single cohesive strategy. And the effort has to start with the business value drivers.
Those measurable goals like increasing CLV, efficiency, operational excellence.
Then you have to build that coherent big data management platform to execute those goals efficiently. And that means eliminating the strategic and financial chaos that's caused by those 10 common silos.
And critically, you must secure common enterprise integration across all of your business processes. Recognizing that working in those silos, it just sacrifices the potential exponential gains. It sacrifices that 1 + 1 = 3 synergy.
So what does this all mean? It means your strategy is only as strong as your weakest integration point.
That's a great way to put it.
A brilliant data science model running on an incredible technical platform is strategically worthless if the rest of the business, say the finance or the service team, can't consume or act on its insights because of those rigid departmental silos.
The core lesson from the sources is just so clear. Data strategy can't be delegated entirely to a single technical team. It has to be a blend of top-down business goals, technical coherence, and organizational process synergy. It has to be a unifying enterprise mission.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider. If the success of an organization depends so heavily on the entire organization coming together to create a common enterprise data strategy, what processes or structures must you dismantle first? Not to build something new, but simply to stop the business units from sabotaging each other's data efforts.
The most valuable first step might actually be subtraction, not addition.